back to Case Files, where we dive into our players. In today's episode, we're going to take a closer look at Clark Phillips III, the corner out of Utah. But first, if you want to do a huge favor for your boy by hitting that like button, and if you want to hit that dislike button, it won't hurt your boy's feelings. Well, maybe just a little bit. If you guys like what I do on this channel, hit that subscribe button to help out the empire grow tremendously. So on that note, let's continue with the episode. I'm very excited to see what he brings to the Atlanta Falcons because he was a starting right corner and a nickel package sometimes coverage schemes when he played for Utah. So what can he accomplish in his rookie year for the Atlanta Falcons? Let's find out. In week 1 against Florida, I thought Clark just had an average game, and there's a lot of reasons why I felt like that, because mostly I wasn't very impressed with the play calls that were given to him, and I feel like a lot of times that there was just too much natural plays going on. So let's just dive into the film to see why. For some reason, the camera just zooms in so you can't tell what Clark is doing, but I love what the defensive coordinator is telling Clark to do, to making sure that you don't give him big yardage to make the first down. If he gets a chunk of yards, it's okay, just stop him, to making sure they will have to fight another down. So on this play, it's kind of hard to tell where Clark is going because he get cut off on the screen at the bottom tier, but it's alright though, because I like that he wins his individual matchup against the wide receiver number 14, but unfortunately he doesn't have the proper stance to make the correct tackle, even though I like his attempt to try to tackle number 3, and we clearly see here where he beats number 14, and then he looks where the wide receiver is going, and then he makes the tackle. He does wrap him up, but he doesn't bring him down because he doesn't have the correct form to maintain him, to making sure he doesn't make any more moves. So on this particular play, Clark is going to show you his awareness and his adaptness to keen situations where he tackles properly and making sure that number 3 does not get extra yardage. So we see here right now where we're going to use the slow motion where he's already making his move before the quarterback does anything with it, and he goes avoid his wide receiver target and then get after number 3 and making sure that if he can't take him down, his teammates can. It's not a secret to anybody that I just don't care about Anthony Richardson's passing game. I don't think he's that elite yet, but what I do think, he's very athletic and has the Cam Newton style of running the ball down your throat if he has to. And he does an incredible play in doing this play action pass where he wants to go to his wide receivers, but he clearly sees that all of his options are pretty much good in coverage, so he decides to pull the ball and make it his own. And this is where I don't think this is Clark's fault at all, but he is the guy who has to make sure that Anthony Richardson does not get this touchdown at all costs. But unfortunately, he gets stiff-armed real quickly, and it's kind of hard to tell. But if you look here on the screen where Anthony Richardson looks, but then he just decides to tuck it in and run the ball himself, and then right here, like this real quick, he just does a little quick sidearm stiff, and then that's where Clark just failed to stop him for this incredible touchdown. But I'm not going to be completely mad about Clark because he is labeled as 5'10", like under 180 pounds, and he has to go against, you know, a 6'4" quarterback who weighs 245 pounds and who is a freak train. Yeah, you do the math and see what happens. Usually, I don't like these defensive play calls because they're allowing the wide receiver to get those extra 5-yard steps without getting jammed, without being contested enough to make the proper down easier enough. But what I love about the Utah defenders, they kind of do a fake blitz concept, and even still, they scare off Anthony Richardson where he makes his really terrible throw. But if this was a great quarterback throw, and like everyone else, then it would have probably been a problem for Clark, because even though I like how Clark just stick by his man, even though he might have got lost for that split second, but even still, he didn't really make any sort of type of play to negate the effect. It was all due to Anthony Richardson throwing a little bit too high for the wide receiver to make the proper adjustment to catch it down. This is a very fascinating play call that the Florida Gators is doing. So they're going to have one guy on the left side just by himself, isolated on the island, and everybody else is going to the right side. And I love to see how Clark just doesn't get overwhelmed. He sees his individual matchup on number 1. He beats his guy, but he doesn't have the proper angle to stop number 3 on making this first down. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. It is very hard and difficult to stop a certain type of quarterback who can just ground and pound the ball under 5 yards of scrimmage when he's going to catch this touchdown, especially if he's a big dude. And we clearly see that everybody's getting lined up, right? And you see Clark is just doing what he can do, making sure that the wide receivers doesn't go over the top. But when he sees the awareness, what I like that he's doing, where he sees that Anthony Richardson is just running it, he tries to make a play, but eventually he can't do anything about it because you're going against a tank of a man. And you just don't have the proper time to adjust where your surroundings are because you're just so far away, unfortunately. In Week 5 against Oregon State, Clark Phillips III had an excellent game, and this showcased how fantastic his covering skills is when he can definitely turn the tide of a game. Let's find out what happened. On this play, watch how Phillips uses his technique when he arches his back and uses 2 feet to making sure that they go backwards with perfect precision. And then he captivates this by pausing for that quick split second, watching the quarterback, and then acts upon it and captures it for a turnover, and then he tries to dedicate himself to try to get a touchdown in this motion, and also has the fantastic leap abilities to catch up in the air, and then has the correct balance to try to go forward with it. Already, I'm very impressed on how Clark uses his instincts and awareness and knowing where is the position battle is headed into in his direction, and still makes the correct play and taking this to the house. And this is very hard because awareness and timing is pretty much everything to a corner to succeed in the NFL. And I like that even though he's been separated 5 yards apart, he still angles correctly, he still uses hips mechanics, and he just trusts himself to get the proper play and the proper timing. And it can be very difficult to understand and get that concept right away off the bat when you come to the NFL, but I think he can do it. This is an incredible play by Clark. Even though he's in the nickel position, he has to do 3 key things. Number 1, he has to jam one of the wide receivers to making sure he's off his route. Number 2, he has to give his teammates enough time to adjust the proper position so they can guard properly. Number 3, he has to find his own key one-on-one matchups to making sure that no one is by himself where he gets all that field yardage. And then the number 4 secret thing is that the front 4 is creating all this pressure where the Oregon State quarterback can't make the proper adjustments and making sure his footing is not properly set. So that means that he has to throw this ball away and everybody's covered beautifully. Sometimes you're going to get plays like these where they kind of frustrate you, especially because on how the refs play a huge part on this role, because Clark does an excellent job on man-to-man coverage where he doesn't even allow his opponent to even get barely, yardage off of him, and they called him on a face mask, even though it was just a split second of it where he didn't grip it tightly, but they still called it anyway. I think that's complete trash and crap, and they should just let the whole entire play just play out by itself. So I think they were totally wrong in this situation. I'll say this, 4th down conversions are always nerve-wracking when it comes to you or your opponent when they're doing, because you don't know if they're going to run the ball or pass the ball, and you don't know if it's going to be short, middle, or large gains of a 1st down or not. And if you make it successful and you stop them, you get the better field position. If you don't, you have to keep going. So yes, it's a battle of nutrition and it's the battle of the mind, and unfortunately it doesn't help when the quarterback goes inside, but then quickly changing directions on the right side, that giving the illusion that you're thinking going straight, but really not, and giving that separation to the wide receiver because he knows what's going on, and that's how Clark gets beat on this play. It's something to be admired about how a corner uses his stance properly and contort his body into incredible position to get incredible interceptions like these. And this is very difficult, I'm pretty sure, to even try to master, because just look how the body flows. He's quick enough to just change on a dime, and then he also is still looking at the quarterback no matter what's going on. Excellent job. In Week 7 against the USC Trojans, I thought Clark Phillips III had an excellent game, and especially when he had to compete against Jordan Addison, who was drafted with the 1st round in the 23rd overall pick by the Minnesota Vikings. I thought he did an excellent job in this game, and let's watch the film to see why. Right off the bat, I am not crazy in love with this type of coverage scheme because I feel like this is going to hurt Clark, but yet it doesn't. In fact, this makes him even better because of how quickness, time, reaction, and he just knows where the ball is going. And look, he's still looking at the quarterback no matter what the cost is, and he makes an incredible play to make this an incomplete pass. And this is what I'm very excited to see for what he's going to bring to the Falcons. That same demeanor. It's hard to teach someone like that already, and I'm just so excited. I just want to highlight some of these type of playing styles where a lot of people might not just think about what the corner is going to do in a run situation, but I like how Clark is handling number 0, making sure he is not getting, slipping out. He's sticking with his man no matter what the situation is, and it's just an excellent job to see that. This is a good lesson for any young cornerback that's coming into the NFL. Do not panic. When you panic, you lose the battle, not the war. And what do I mean by that? Now, at first, I liked his stance, but that's not the issue. The issue is when you get freaked out when Jordan Addison goes to the left, and then he's changed direction on a dime, and then goes to the right side. The problem is you're holding his jersey, and that will always be called on a flag, no matter what the situation is. Sometimes, you just gotta take a lick and know that you just got beat, and accept the fact. That's all. And I know it's hard to deal with that because it is human nature not to feel like that. This was a very interesting situation to see unfold when the center didn't realize the quarterback was trying to change up the play call because he didn't like the formation on the defensive side of the ball. But even still, he still threw the ball, and Clark did a pretty good job going against Jordan and not allowing him to create separation where he could get those 2 or 5 extra yardage to probably get this touchdown. And plus, he moved Jordan's body frame to the right side instead of Jordan could probably cut to the left side to create more separation and probably get this touchdown. Excellent job. Usually, I don't like zone coverage schemes because I think they're really bad and terrible and give way too much free coverage. But on this one, it wasn't that bad. The only problem was that Clark didn't handle his business with Jordan. And unfortunately, sometimes you're going to have matchups where you're just going to get beat. And everybody else did their job with a T. They were covering everybody. But unfortunately, Clark just couldn't beat his man on time. And that was all. This is a great showtelling of how consistent Clark is against Jordan because he's been thrown and targeted a lot of times, and he has been showing that regardless of the situation, he is ready to step up on the plate and making sure that he is properly have the right correct form, the timing, and making sure he doesn't get that extra one step beat down, and he does a fantastic job completely. Here's a clear-cut reason why I don't like the zone coverage schemes, because from an outsider looking in, I have no idea which player is supposed to cover who in these scenarios, because they just go, 5 yards, of free open space, but what the defenders, coordinators are telling them to guard this player, but we clearly see that Jordan Addison, just shimmy shift that one guy, they just stood still, and then so Clark had to break his guy. I think that was supposed to be his guy, but that's the problem, because obviously I don't know what the defensive coordinator is telling these players to defend which guy. It's just up in the air to our eyes, but I just don't like the play call. It should have been man-to-man. That's all I'm saying. For the last game of today's episode in Week 12 against Oregon, Clark had another excellent game, and we'll just dive into the video to see why. Unfortunately, you can't see where Clark is at because the camera is not pandering toward the upper part of the video. But even still, I love how he diverts 84 so he doesn't get jammed, and he still finds a way to tackle number 1. And just using his pure awareness and strength, that's a Superman move right there. Unfortunately, again, you can't see where Clark is at. He's at the very bottom of your screen, and I like that he's in man-to-man coverage, making sure that number 2 doesn't even get an ounce of separation. Fantastic job on Clark's department. This is an incredible play by Clark because the wide receiver is going to do a cross route. Instead of going to the left side, he's going to the right side thinking that he gets the edge. But no, because Clark reads it perfectly and reacts perfectly where he doesn't draw the flag and he makes it an incompletion. Excellent job. This is a good opportunity to talk about Clark's weaknesses, and one of them is definitely his height. Of course, he's 5'10", so when he's going against a wide receiver who is 6'3" in Troy Franklin, obviously there's going to be huge benefactors for Troy with the slant routes. And most importantly, slant routes are so difficult to cover, especially if you're tall going against a small corner. Most of the time, at least 80% of the time, you're going to score a touchdown because of your height difference. There's no shame in that. It's just how you play the other side weakness, and that's just basically it. Remember I talked about Clark's inefficient when it comes to against tall wide receivers at the red zone? Well, it depends on the situational matters. If he's in a tight coverage situation in the red zone, I don't think he has much of a chance. But if he has a lot of space to work and maneuver and have the proper time to readjust his situation, I think he has a better chance in stopping any tall or small wide receivers because he has that mobility of that freedom of space leverage. On this last play, this just shows you the mentality that Clark the Phillips III has. It's just his awareness and knowing where the quarterback is all time. He doesn't care, what's in front of him. All he cares about where the quarterback is going to throw, and whatever he sees, he's going to trust his own instinct and his body to make the right adjustment, to make the right play. And that's something you cannot teach with these young bucks. Is either you have it or you don't. And that's something I'm very excited for him to bring into the ATL. And I think he will definitely do some devastating work in the NFC South. So what is the final verdict for Clark Phillips III? I think this kid will be a star in the ATL in his second year. Obviously in this rookie year, he's probably going to play more nickel, but that's fine. That means he can adjust to NFL to really understand the meat and potatoes of the corner. He's definitely going to be our starting right corner in his second season or maybe third season, but most definitely his second season, he will be an all-star for us. I love his prowess. I love his IQ. I love, his field awareness. I love that he has incredible first instincts, a burst, and timing is one of the key factors I've noticed that he is so golden at. And I think that's going to take him and elevate him so high up in the ranks for the Atlanta Falcons. And hopefully for the NFL will notice him because he has the proper timing to make these proper adjustments and make the right plays. That's all I'm saying. I have high hopes for this young kid, and I think he's going to be great for the Atlanta Falcons. And the fans will definitely love him. So good luck to this young man. So on that note, if you guys are excited for this Atlanta Falcons season like I am, and you guys want to learn more about our Atlanta Falcons, please watch more Atlanta Falcons Case Fire series if you guys are ever interested in any other players. So on that note, what do Falcons do? Rise up. Until the next episode, show love and peace to the world, and peace.